Hello, everyone. Welcome to the webinar from TriStar. My name is Thiagu Palaniappan. Today's topic is going to be Creo 7.0 overview. We'll cover some of the core enhancements as well as the new technologies. Before getting started, a few logistics here. All of you will be muted during the presentation. If you have any questions, feel free to start typing them in the questions area on the webinar. There's also a handout section where we have where you could download a PDF in the handout section, just showing some of the key enhancements that may be beneficial to you and your company. Okay, so with that said, most of you may be aware of TriStar, but let me do a quick intro about our company. TriStar, I would say we are a company that specializes in helping manufacturing companies adopt software systems and processes to enable more efficient product development, right? And we do this by being one of the largest resellers of PTC products in the world. And we do have experience in PLM, in CAD, in simulation, and we help our customers implement these as well as train them on products as well as best practices, right? So just a quick intro about our company. From an agenda standpoint, I know some of you may have tried out Creo 7 already, or maybe you are in Creo 4, 5, or 6, and you would like to know what's new. So I thought of putting together a very high-level overview. It's a lot of content, I know. The good thing is, you will all be getting the recording of this presentation. So some of you may be interested in the core areas, right? Like part modeling, assembly, sketcher, what has changed, including the 2D drawing. Some of you may be interested in some of the newer exciting technologies that PTC has introduced starting Creo 7.0. So we are going to go through those also. So the first half of my presentation is going to be more on the core enhancements, and the second half is going to be on the new technologies, and then I'll try my best to answer your questions if you could start typing in the questions area. Okay, so let me move on here to the first one. So I know there's a lot of information here, and each of these could itself be its own webinar. However, just to show you the enhancements areas, all the way from augmented reality, core modeling, surfacing, welding, right, detailing, including new technologies like generative design or simulation live, additive manufacturing, and also a big one with multibody design, all the way to toolkit, right? PTC has enhanced quite a lot of capabilities in all these areas. And I'll try my best to show some of the key things that would be beneficial. And then I'll try to do the demonstration and the slides at the same time here. So first off, for those who are using Creo for a long time, you do know the constraints, and PTC is working on the usability for a long time, and they modernized the visualization of the sketcher, the constraints. You could have different background color, line color, change the size. They also enhanced the mirror tool inside of the sketcher. A config option is there to control the visibility of the constraints by default when you do an edit of your part or feature, right? And finally, in Sketcher, they also have the ability to control the instant snapping. Very helpful in complex models, right? It's better to understand all this with an example. So let me just quickly show you an example here. From the visualization standpoint, what I have is Creo 7, and I do have, as you can see, a sketcher, and you can see the new enhancements wherein the icons, the constraint icons are a lot better than before. Not only that, I could just pre-highlight, and it'll tell me what entities it controls, including dimensions, right? Pretty powerful tool, I think, right? So when I cursor over the symmetric constraint, I kind of know what exactly it's controlling. Now, you could go into file options, and under entity display, there is a way to control that, right? So I've increased it here, but the default is somewhere around here. You can have a little preview. As you can see, I could also change the color, right? Maybe I want to go that way. I want to go, just some other color here, and all that could be changed, or you can just use a default. And all this gets added to your config.ui file, right, automatically. Or I can just use the default one right there. So let me leave it at some point or something like that. For now, I'll just leave it at that. And depending on the background color, it changes the color too, so that's pretty nice. And another enhancement is on the mirroring itself. So let me open up a different design here. If I go into Creo in the sketch environment, and I do have, let me hide my constraints for now, but in the past, it used to be that you could only mirror off of a center line. Now you could use reference lines, straight lines, or any straight entities, right? Even regular lines could be used. So I want to go mirror off of this line, and there it goes. Now by default, it's not locked, right? And there's a config for that too. So if I go to my sketcher, I'll be able to go lock the axis of symmetry. If I do that, then it will auto-lock those entities. So locking itself is not new. It's been there for a long time in Creo. But if I go and mirror it now, you could see how the little lock symbol is there. And so I'm unable to, it's locked. And I mean, I can change the value, but so I can undrag it, but I will be able to change those. Of course, I could just go change it to, change the value to make it, to update that. But, that's one enhancement in the sketcher. Another one is when you work on much more complex geometry. So when I say complex geometry, I wouldn't consider this real complex, but my design intent is, I'm using my sketcher to place my design intent here, as you can see. But in Creo 4, when PTC introduces snapping, let me go to the hidden style here. It was pretty nice, but sometimes on geometries like this, can you see how it is trying to snap to everything on my way to this entity? That's what I want to really snap to. So it's they got a nice little option here in the right click that says don't do instant snapping. So when I do that and say instant snapping should not be enabled, right? If I do that, and then I say it'll still snap, but you see how nicely it snaps to the geometry that I want, or more on visible geometries, right? I have my visible geometry, and there it is, right? So pretty nice tool, I think. So again, you have it in the snap settings in here. You still want to snap, but you don't want to snap to even hidden geometry or instantaneously, right? You're kind of giving a delay there. That's really the enhancement in Creo 7.0. Now, similar to this, there are a few other core modeling enhancements, like the draft, if you do castings. Many of you may remember in Creo 5 itself, PTC introduced the ability to create drafts even when you have rounds and chamfers. That was a big enhancement in 5.0. In 7.0, what they did was, if you have imported geometry where the draft is already there, but I'd like to recognize that draft, when I create a draft feature, it understands to draft an already drafted surface, especially ruled surface and cone surfaces, right? And that allows you to, the use case here is if you have imported geometry where you don't have the feature to change, you could use FMX or editing tools, but this is a lot easier. So let me quickly show an example on that too. So if I go to a part here, and I do have the surface that I would like to see what draft is there right now off of that draft hinge. As you can see, it tells me currently, when I'm creating a draft feature, it recognizes the draft and is telling me it's 5 degrees, right? I could go and say, let's set it to 10 degrees, right there. I've increased the draft, right? It could be an imported model too, right? Same thing, maybe I want to add a draft in here. And off of this is the draft hinge. And as you can see, it's in the process of identifying those adjacent rounds. This is introduced in Creo 5 itself. And I could say, let's add a 5-degree draft on them. So what is really happening behind the scenes is they're essentially removing that and adding it, and we don't see it, right? That's really what's happening behind the scenes. It's like under the hood, that's what is happening, but it's pretty nice that they have it. Now, what happens when you have drafts in a geometry with different angles? For example, I want to go add the draft on this guy, right? Or find the draft on this one with this as a draft hinge. It identifies the angle, but maybe I want to add additional surfaces. As soon as I add a second surface, you see how the draft angle becomes 0, right? So that's telling me that they both are. It's an indication that they're all having different angles. And now I could just go, let's say I want to add a 3-degree draft on it, and I can use a mini toolbar, all that in Creo 6, right? The reverse pull direction. It's a good practice to always go to full screen in Creo 4. All that is still the usability enhancements are still there, but it's a couple of nice enhancements, I thought, on the core modeling side. Let me get back to the presentation here. So a few other enhancements is starting Creo 7. When you create a new part by default, right, it's going to be using the absolute accuracy instead of relative accuracy. It's especially useful when you use a multi-body design that's new in Creo 7. And many of our customers used to use it, right? During my industry days, I used to use it when I work on data sharing features, when I have a reference model and another model, and I'm sharing information. That's when you'll have to, switch between relative and absolute. So it's, your current existing configs pointing to existing templates, those will work the same. But starting Creo 7, if you look at their default templates, they've renamed them to ABS, absolute, REL stands for relative. That used to be the old template, if you remember, inches or millimeter, right? So that's a quick one. And then import data doctor, when you import geometries or files from other CAD system, we used to have that import data doctor to fix those gaps and everything, right? We still have that, but the nice thing is it will list bodies. So this is a SolidWorks file that had multiple bodies, and I'm seeing my quills and surfaces inside of those bodies. They also have the ability to filter geometry representations, very useful in generative design, or maybe when you do lattice structures for additive manufacturing, where you would like to see or control the transparency of the boundary rep or the B-rep model versus the faceted or simplified geometry, right? So all those are a couple of nice enhancements that they have. So if I have a lattice body here, as you can see, I do have this new boundary B-rep or mixed. So if I say show me only no boundary rep, it's just showing you those representative, the lattice structure itself. I could also control the transparency, and it's helpful in multiple areas of those new technologies that they've introduced. There's also a few other enhancements, like if I go to, let me just go, welding, right? So some of you may have used a weld application, and we used to have it, and you can leverage that in Creo 4. You also can do with solid welds. Starting 7.0, the solid welds is still there as introduced in 7, but we used to have issues in these kind of corners, as you can see. This is a Creo 6 situation versus a Creo 7 situation, especially when you have different sizes. It's able to handle it better, right? So really quickly, if I were to show you a quick one here on the welds, let's say those who have not used welds before, just to give you a quick one on the welds that used to be there before itself for a long time. Under applications, welding, right? In all base licenses, you have this welding option in Creo that's been there for a very long time. I could just go and start the welding application, right? And then say, maybe I want to add a fillet weld between the surface and the surface. Let's say I want to specify a specific size. And in Creo 4, you had the ability to make a solid weld here, right? You can even assign material that might help for weight calculations, as well as in Creo Simulate, you could leverage this weld and do a stress analysis or a structural analysis, right? And the big advantage is I don't have to create a symbol in the 2D drawing, right? It's done automatically here, and I'm able to represent the weld. When I'm drilling a hole, I kind of know, okay, there's a weld in there. It's good to have that representation. Now you could also do other things like, for example, plug or slot weld, where I select the base surface and also select the side surfaces, or maybe I could do an intermittent weld. And again, I'm going to make this a solid weld for now. So I can take advantage of the mask properties, and I can always make it intermittent. And when I do an intermittent weld, I can control the size and whatnot, right? How it's evenly spaced out or something like that. There it goes, right? And of course, I could, let's move that. I'm doing all this in the 3D model, as you can see, or in the assembly mode. Or I could just say I want to add a square butt weld between, let's see here, this one, just doing should be able to grab that, shift, snap to it, right? I'm just grabbing this and snapping to this guy here. So when I go to side 2, and now I could just go to, all these are Creo 4 stuff that some of you might have known before. Some of you may not have used it, but so now I could specify a size for that, and so similarly, this has been there, right, for some time now. But imagine a situation where if I go into the weld area, and if I, let's say, open up an example like this one here, where how do I create a weld on this? This is where the surface welds used to work, but solid welds had an issue. So now with 7.0, this is the enhancement where if I go to add another weld in here and maybe make it different sides, there it is, right? And I'm going to just select that, and we'll specify a specific size in there, also make it solid. And as you can see here, it's able to handle that transition, right? That was a problem before. It's able to handle that transition. And similarly, I could do that obviously with the weld, like even in here. And I could just go side 2. And maybe for side 2, we'll just add a few more references. And maybe increase the size a wee bit here. So, and also, of course, make it solid, etc. So just a couple of quick enhancements that's coming up. Let me go back to in Creo 7, right? A slide, that's really the part modeling side. Those who do sheet metal design, one nice enhancement that I like is if you guys use quilts or punch forms or die or sketched forms, right? Form features. There used to be an issue, especially like in here, as you can see, wherein if that form feature, right, sometimes it creates these kind of unwanted geometry, as you can see here, wherein it's not an orthogonal surface, and now they have a little option to control that, right? So let me just switch back to an example that's best understood with an example if I show you that. So let's say I do have, if you see this, let me edit definition on this guy, and this essentially I used a punch. I could have just even done a sketched form, but you could see the deformation, right? If you see in the side view, right in there, right? That's what is causing that. So if I were to do a flattened form on this guy, right? Let's say I do a flattened form, you could see the surface there. That is the trimming I was talking about, where this used to happen in Creo 6, right? So what you could do starting 7 is they have a little option. That's the only enhancement in 7 pretty much, where you could go trim edges of sheared forms. And when you do that, you could see the difference immediately. So as you can, let me zoom in there, and you could see uncheck that and check it, right? You could see the difference, right? And once I'm done with that, maybe if I want to do the flat pattern preview for manufacturing, you still have the good old flat pattern preview, looking at your dimensions, right? And there it is, right? It's going to be a straight edge, as you can see there, you don't get that. So that's thought it's a good, nice little enhancement. Not a big one, but still useful, I thought. And then surfacing. Some of you might do surfacing. I'm not sure. Those who do surfacing, you might have heard of Freestyle that PT's introducing Creo 2.0. Very helpful for concepting, and they've been trying to add more and more enhancements so that you could use it in the context of real-world manufacturable models, wherein you might want to align or add a draft. So that's a nice little enhancement now, where when you use the align command for surfaces created using Freestyle, which is itself a subdivisional-based modeling, you can use this new draft option, very useful, off of a plane, and you can say, I want to control the draft, like a parting line scenario like here, right? That would be another use case. But let me show you a couple of them real quick. So if I go, this is a model that was completely designed in Freestyle, right? So let me just redefine that Freestyle geometry here. Let me go to full screen. Starting Creo 4, many of you may know there's a little full screen button in Creo that gives you more real estate on Creo. and it'll also encourage you to use those mini toolbar and quick shortcut keys, right? Very good usability enhancement there. So it's been there since Creo 4 anyways, but I'm going to add an edge to, and see, from that midpoint all the way till here, I'm essentially subdivisional based modeling. I'm really breaking that edge, right? I'm just going to the midpoint here, and I'm breaking that. If I could just add one more there. And now having selected that, I should be able to just shift select that as always in Creo, a chain selection, and they got this new draft alignment, right? That's new in 7.0. I'm going to use this as a curve. And to know the graph, you have to give it the angle off of what, right? So I'm going to select the plane, the front plane, and as you can see, give it 30-degree draft, but I'm going to just make it 30 degrees, increasing it from 10 to 30, just so that you can see that parting line there. So, and it also a little icon right there that you could say, is it going to be draft or position, what type of connectivity you want between those two surface patches there, right? So that's thought it's a nice little enhancement done in Creo 7. You also have the ability to align, components like this, right? Where I have solid geometry done, I have my freestyle done here, but instead of freestyle, I'm able to, that's included in all the base packages, I'm able to go select these geometries there and say, I want to add the align itself was there before, right? We had all these before, except this is new, right? The draft. Align, tangent, normal was all there for a long time in Creo 2, 3, 4. They've been adding more and more. And I'd like to do the align draft on this. And I want to go with the plane here, and it gave a 30-degree angle now. And I want to maintain it, let's say, like a 5-degree angle, and see, very useful, nice little surfacing enhancement, I thought, in Creo 7. Now let's move on to another one here, detailing, right? So I know, it's something that, very important, right? No matter how cool your 3D model looks like, we still have a lot of customers, I know a good percentage of our customers are inquiring about and looking into implementing MBD. But and any enhancement that PTC is doing in the detailing area is also applicable to MBD, right? Model-based definition, right, on the 3D. So some usability enhancements, which I'll go over, like tooltips and adding additional columns to your drawing tree, very helpful for large complex assembly drawings and part drawings. They have enhanced the hidden line removal with a config option, the HLR advanced interference check part. In Creo 6 and prior, sometimes you used to get these edges with intersecting components, and now that's been cleared. Even little things like, when you try to move the cross-section arrow, sometimes you accidentally move the A and the arrow doesn't move, the text moves. And, I thought this was long overdue. They finally have a config pro that says move section arrow with name and set it to yes, and you're all set. So some of these enhancements like config.pros, it's not just for 7. You will see these getting rolled out in newer releases of Creo 4, 5, and 6, right? In this case, 4 and 6, actually. You could even do a little multiple tangent or normal leaders. You could do multiple leaders before, but not multi-tangent or normal, and this applies to geometric tolerances, nodes, balloons, etc., right? That's also very useful. A few other things on baseline, it automatically, when I do sheet metal flat states, I always use baseline dimensions, right? And many times it would not come out aligned, and I'll have to do a cleanup afterwards, and now they have a detail file option or a drawing setup file option that would control that and automatically align it, right? A few other things like controlling the length of these intersecting contours, right? And a few minor ones in there, cosmetic things, I would say, but still useful. And if you do create machine parts, and I'm sure geometric tolerance is a big thing for many of our customers, and PTC is ensuring that from a compliance for standards, they have updated Creo 7 to support ASME Y 14.5 2018, which is what we care about here in the United States, or if it's for international customers, ISO 2017 version. So sometimes, let's say you use concentricity with this new version, it'll tell you that, okay, that's no longer supported in the latest version. And you can go change it if you'd like. And so some nice enhancements there. They've been adding new symbols, both on the ISO side and the ASME side, right? Like little things like, if you want to have multiple nodes, I would like to space them out, and that is added. So overall, some nice ones in the drawing. So let me go through a few of them real quick before we talk about some of the new exciting technologies there. So if I open up a drawing here, so I do have a 2D drawing. Let me just, as you can see here, I'm just hovering over this the drawing view, and there is a little tooltip now that'll come up, or you can go summary for view, right? You can do summary view. There's a way to add multiple options in that. So for example, if I go to detailing, right under options, they have a new detailing option there, wherein you could control, maybe you're not a tooltip guy, you can uncheck that, or you could just say, I want to show scale, simplified wrap, and a lot of other things when I do that, and that way, when you cursor over any view or anything, it'll immediately kind of pop up with a little view. And right now, I know over the GoToMeeting window, sometimes it doesn't pop up. There's a little tooltip viewer that'll show up. You could also add additional things in your columns, like what I've added here, sim preps, current view, child view, and you have the option to sort by view model. So I might have a multi-sheet, multi-model view. As you can see, it's sorted by assembly views, part views. I have better clarity. I could just go sort by parent views as well. So let's say I select a view and I'd like to know more about the child views. And if the view is in the same sheet, it'll highlight it. But if I go to a view in a different sheet, this little icon would take me to that sheet. So overall, I thought some it's little ones, but usability enhancements, some good ones, I thought. You could also go and create, let's see here, maybe another one. Let me just toggle that column off. That was introduced in Creo 6, actually. So several minor enhancements since PTC is going with the earlier release these days, right? Let's say this is an assembly, but still it should be okay to show you the functionality. I would have done this in a part, obviously, but let's say I add a GTOL here, right? It's perpendicular, right? Let's say I want to make it perpendicular, but I could add leader, like as always before. But before, we never had this ability to keep adding the leader, but wherein all of them are normal, right? This applies to notes. It applies to other annotations too. So I should be able to just drag them over and I can resize them or move them around, but a small little enhancement there. And also if you go to the drawing from a compliance standpoint, right, whether it's ISO, I mean, most of you may be using ASME standards, so let me just focus on the ASME side of things. And I do have a part where I have MBD, right? I have, if you go to my annotate tab, I have a combination state with all my GTOLs and done in the part mode. And let's say I go to one of my views here, right? So there's a GTOL, right? I want to just go, in Creo 4 itself, we changed, they made a pretty good job with all these new interface, right, compared to Creo 3, but that's still continues. And if I go to concentricity, right, immediately I'm getting a warning here, right, telling that it's not supported in the selected tolerancing standard. So this tells me that, if I go to my properties, that I need to change my standard, right, or at least not yet up to date. I know it's one of those things many companies go through, right? You're still not up to date, or it's kind of making sure you adhere to those new standards. So ASME Y14.5 2018, I should be able to change it. Let's say I switch it back to 2009, the older version, and now that error is gone, for example, right? Or maybe you want to go to things like if I go to another view here, I have a composite a GTOL here. When you add like text, for example, this is introduced in Creo 4 itself, but let's say I want to add, we'll just go add a couple of texts here. We'll just go. Okay, so you see the gap in there. So there's little things like this, right? So where I could just hit distribute them, and they're now better distributed there. So that little icon right here, that really helps the thought. So yeah, overall, quite a lot of enhancements. But I in the interest of time here, let's keep moving on here. Rendering, if you do rendering, maybe for sales or marketing, you would like to create a cool image from your 3D assembly mode or part mode. Since Creo 4, it uses the KeyShot engine, right, for rendering. They did make one nice improvement when you do shading with reflections, right? In a geometry like this, I may want to control off of a specific surface, that reflectivity, right? And now they have a custom option to select the floor plane. And also you can pause or resume the rendering. So let's say while rendering, it takes some time. Depending on the graphics card you have, you may want to go to Creo View or go to Windchill or work on some other application while this is still doing it. You could pause it, right? Maybe resume it anytime. And if you use the mannequins, the mannequin view window, or I should say the vision window is also can be rendered now, right? So those are some minor enhancements there. Many of you may not know that in Creo 4 and 5, they introduced the augmented reality design share in the base package, where you're able to quickly publish an AR experience that you can use before you have view to view during a design review meeting, or maybe you want to send it to somebody. You're able to do that. Up to 10 experiences allowed with the free one, but now they also allow you to leverage the combination states that you may have created in your assembly, right? That's an enhancement there. So, okay, so that's really some of the core enhancements there. So let me, and then we'll go through some of the newer technologies. So if I go to, let's see here, maybe an assembly, and I know rendering is very improved in Creo 4 itself, and 7, they have some nice enhancements. So let me quickly show you that. I'm going to go into ambient occlusion, so it occludes the light, or it removes the light that gets occluded, I should say. There was a scene background, and I'm not going to do a rendering per se, but just to show you, so right now, if you see, the reflection is off of this geometry, right, this surface there. So let me go to full screen, and maybe for taking a screenshot or maybe saving it out as a JPEG file, I might want to change that, right? So I could go into the scene, edit the scene, and just like before, we still have the environment, but there they have a new option where you can go to the floor plane and select a custom plane. Instead of just selecting the default, you could just go custom, and maybe I want to select this, and now, as you can see, that is going to be the reflection surface, or maybe I want to go select some other surface here, and so that becomes my reflection. And I can also control the reflectivity and, control that as well there. So so I got some nice enhancements, all the way, just showing you it's very little enhancements done. However, across the board, right, several things that we are talking about here. So let me get to the new exciting technologies now, since we're kind of halfway through the presentation here. Just wanted to spend the rest of the time going over some of the new exciting technologies that PTC introduced in 7, right? So some of you may have heard of generative topology optimization, right? That's generative design is a big thing now. It's essentially, creating the design autonomously, right? It's creating some real optimal designs from a set of system requirements or constraints that the engineer can give, right? So you can interactively specify, for example, like a goal of preferred materials, including manufacturing processes. Now, as soon as you look at this image that I have on the slide, you might be thinking, okay, that can only be 3D printed. But could I just say that if it's going to be milled from the original design that I had, right, I'm going to do a traditional manufacturing process from here, reduce the mass by 30%, but I would like you to give a traditional manufacturing constraint, or I could use it even for 3D printing to control the build. You can give the direction of the support build, the angle, etc. So it's applicable for both. And what really happening behind the scenes is PTC acquired a company called Frustum. The Frustum AI engine is what is working behind the scenes to create that in real time, right? So, and they also have automated the final geometry creation using Freestyle and a few other options. So it's a pretty nice tool, and currently they support structural, thermal, and modal. So you can apply loads, constraints, and you can apply your manufacturing constraints too, right? And those would be your goal or objective of the optimization. So it's not the traditional design optimization that many of you may be used to, where you select a radius or a dimension and say it can go from this to this. If the stress is going to be, I want you to make the stress less than this, or make it lightweight. This is more topology optimization, right? So here's an example, right? Much more here I have a design where I might want to see, make use of generative design to see if we could use it for traditional manufacturing versus additive manufacturing. As you can see, when I select additive manufacturing constraints, you could see those the geometry is created much different compared to if I were to use it or create it using a traditional milling operation. So both are supported. That's what I like about, in Creo 5 and 6, PTC did have a different engine for topology optimization, but that just created shapes like these that could only be done using additive manufacturing, but now they support both. That's a big use case for using the new generative topology optimization in Creo. So let's take a quick look on this one also. So for example, I have a design here that I'm going to start from scratch, as you can see, and Creo 7 has introduced a multi-body design. If any of you are interested in that, my colleague Oscar did a webinar last week specifically on multi-body design. So if you go to TriStar.com or to our YouTube channel, you should be able to view that part of the enhancement on the multi-body. So here I do have multiple bodies, right? So as you can see, I have this envelope. I have a keep load. So if I go and select hide and hide, I do have, so let me hide the main body here. So what I'm trying to do is I'm telling the system, I'm saying that these are preserved geometries, right? But then this is the starting geometry that I would like to give, right? So I'd like to give the system to optimize, right? I may want to apply some loads and constraints and, okay. So the way it's done is instead of applications, I just go to generative design, right? When I go to generative design, it immediately tells me the status right here, right? You got to go through the starting geometry first, and for that I'm going to use this body, and it comes in transparency. That's the starting geometry. The preserved geometry would be this body, this guy, and maybe this guy too, right? I'm going to leave the other body just for applying the load, right? So there it is, right? So right now, the blue items are the preserved geometry, and I could exclude, right? I could even create another body here, for example, and say, just exclude that area from any type of topology optimization. That's also an option. Having done this, I could start applying my constraints, for example. I could just say I want to go with these. Let's see here. I want to apply, fix those. Maybe assign a load to this surface here. Maybe I want to go in the Y direction. We'll just say about specific load in there. Let me just give it a vector. Instead of a vector, let me give it a magnitude. And the load is having a problem right now because if you think about it, they're not connected bodies. So I'm going to apply a bonded contact interface between this body and the envelope body. So even though I'm not using it for the optimization per se, it's used for the loading condition, right? And now what is the design criteria, right? This is where I could say that I want you to limit it to 30% of the mass, right, of the starting geometry. Or I could even give an actual value itself, I want to limit the volume to that. I want to add constraints, and this is where you're adding your manufacturing constraints, right? Do you want to apply the build direction mainly for additive manufacturing to reduce the number of supports? Or would you want to use traditional manufacturing method wherein you're going to select the parting line, the linear extrude direction, right? If I don't do anything, right now I'm not doing anything, I'm just going to say planar symmetry off of, let's say, one of these datum planes here, right? And I'm going to add a material. So you're specifying the manufacturing process. You're optimizing it for those. You're applying loads and also assigning a material. And having done all that, now it says it's ready. The study is fully defined and I optimize it, right? I just chose a smaller model so it'll come out quick in a live demo. I do have a few other examples that I've been playing around with, but you will see that it's optimizing it right now as we speak. I don't know across the GoToMeeting how live that's coming through. But again, you can see the geometry that it is working on, right? I didn't give any type of constraints like I'm going to do a I'm going to do a traditional manufacturing operation to create it or versus 3D printing. I just said make it symmetric off of a plane, and it seems to, that's kind of why it created these type of geometries, right? And I can generate a design from here. Or I could say, maybe, you know what, I can add another design criteria and say, this time though, I'm going to specify same 30% decrease, but I'm going to just use a linear extrude wherein I'm going to specify the extrude direction, and I'm going to just go with the material here. So apply slightly different ones in here, right? And now if I go and say optimize, as you can see, I have multiple ones in here. And now can you see, since I did extrude, can you see how it's kind of doing a different type of topology optimization? You know, it's happening, and you can see that the optimizer is still running right there, right? The number of steps as we speak here. So that's what I like about this new generative topology optimization compared to in Creo 5 and 6, where PTC used a different optimization engine. This is using the Frustum AI-driven engine that's kind of ensuring that you can still do the traditional manufacturing topology optimization instead of just the additive manufacturing, which is really popular these days, right? So you could use both ways. So it's still working on it, right? Depending, I think I gave 30% on the optimization there, right? That's what I gave, I think. So it's there it is, right? It's still working on it on that area right there. And it's using, you know, again, like Creo Simulation Live, it could leverage the GPU as well as CPU computing. I can really see my laptops. It's really working on it right now. If I look at my task manager, and yeah, and it's the Creo 7 utilization, right? As how much of it's being utilized right there. It's working on it right now to get that optimized geometry. So while it's doing that, let me get back to this one. So similar to generative topology optimization, another new technology that has been there since Creo 4 and 5 and 6 is the ANSYS solver, or the ANSYS product called Discovery Live that works inside of PTC, which is fully integrated, called Creo Simulation Live. It used to have structural, thermal, and modal. Starting Creo 7.0, it's also going to have fluids, right? So pretty powerful. So these are the three studies that we used to have before. Until Creo 6.0 and 7.0, they have CSL fluids. So let's take a quick look at this one. It's almost done, I think, right there. And so maybe, you know, I can still allow it to work, or I can just pause that. And you can generate the design there and everything real quick. So I got a few, let me just erase some of these. And if I go to a part, actually, instead of showing a structural example, let's see if I could open up a fluids one. So I have a thermal mixture situation here, wherein I want to use live simulation, right? So again, this is not Creo Simulate. This is live simulation, the ANSYS fully integrated ANSYS Discovery Live program, which gives you instantaneous results with GPU-based computing, right? You don't have even a run analysis button. You just show results because everything is happening instantaneously using GPU, right? So if I go add a fluid study on it, always in fluid studies or in CFD programs, the biggest challenge is creating that fluid volume, right? That is automated here, right? I could just go with internal volume, external volume, and closure volume, right? Or just select an existing fluid domain. I'm going to do internal here and simply select these three surfaces. And there it goes, right? I also have options to select additional seed surfaces, things like that. But there is my fluid volume that has been created, right? Now I could just go say, maybe I want to assign a velocity, right? Maybe I want to just go say, we'll just specify a specific velocity here. We'll also go with a velocity for this one. There it goes, right? And I could also maybe outlet pressure, right? We could just go outlet pressure and leave it 0 right there. That's going to be the outlet. I could also specify temperature. So, for example, let's say I want to make this, let's see here, about so much degrees, and I want to go, this one will assign a temperature of about 120, for example, right? that's pretty much it. And I go to my fluid domain and assign material. So supported materials are air, water, water vapor, engine oil, right? You can create your own, maybe chocolate, for example. I'm just kidding. So you can add your own whatever other fluids that might be working on, but that you might need. So I'm just going to go select water here. And there it goes, right? And now with that, I just hit simulate, and it's essentially, it would start to do its, it's just right now, since my over the GoToMeeting, it's taking a little bit of time here, but just hit play and it'll start doing your FEA, right? Similarly you could also do that for external flow, right, and everything. So very, very basic. You don't have to be a CFD expert, but for the engineer, it's positioned for the engineer to do very basic internal and external flows, right? Another nice little enhancement in the new technologies or extensions is easy tolerance, right? So those who do 1D stack-up tolerancing, PTC used to have something called tolerance analysis extension. That is being replaced in Creo 7 using easy tolerance analysis. It's actually a product that's powered by Sigmatrix, right? It allows quick selection of your geometries, and it can automatically pick up the mates in your assembly to create your stack table with the ability to change the tolerances and look for things like CPK values or statistical tolerances, defective parts per million unit, including worst case, right? And you can change those in real time and see it update too. So let me take let's take a quick look at that as well here. So if I go into the easy, let's see here, an assembly that I have here is just a simple a motor assembly, wherein I'm going to just activate a cross section here. So I might be interested to understand the play in these, the actual shaft, in the actual direction here, right? Maybe I'm interested in doing a gap analysis between these two surfaces in there. So I go to applications and go to easy tolerance analysis. And when I go to easy tolerance analysis, I select the two surfaces that defines my gap, right? Actually, let me create a new stack table. And also specify a plane where I might need that dimensions, right? Let me just zoom out a wee bit here. There it is, right? Something like that. And the good thing is it found out the mates automatically for me, right? So for example, if we were to do a tolerance stack up between these two, right? This is interfacing with this, and then I got the housing interfacing there. It has to work its way, and it's doing that automatically for me, right? There it goes. And it did it's a 1D stack up only, right? It's not for 3D. There's a separate software for that. It's mainly one directional 1D tolerance stack up. And there's my, if I go at the bottom here, there's my stack table with all the dimensions it picked up. It has linked to existing geometric tolerances and tolerance values, or it has also allows you to modify them. I could go, it's right now, what is the goal here? Why are we doing this, right? I could just say, I want to go, the gap should be, let's say, symmetric. We'll just say, this is my goal here, right? That's my goal for that gap. And it gives you the worst case at the bottom, but I could also go for RSS or maybe statistical tolerance values. As you can see, it gives you the CPK value. So for example, I might, I'm looking for a goal of 1.3 CPK, but it's only 1.1, so I could still improve the quality a little more. So how do I improve this, right? To decrease the defective parts per million unit or get a better yield %. It's telling me that the left cap and the right cap dimensions contribute the most. So I go to the left cap, right in here, or the right cap in there. So that's one of the dimensions. I'm just going to go, maybe we'll change the tolerance a wee bit here. And if I go to, let me just scroll through some of these so we could, there it is. If I go to one of the others also, so let's see here. And if I go to the results and look at the CPK, There it is. I was looking for 1.3, but 1.48 is what I got. And I can also convert this to a feature, right? I could do reporting and all that, right? So for example, I create an analysis feature, and there it is, right? It's giving me the defects per million opportunities, the yield percent, the sigma value, everything there. So, and also the ability to quickly generate a report. And it's actually taking screenshots of the model, as you can see, automatically, and it is giving you a HTML report right there. So thought, that is also some good enhancement, especially, we have a lot of customers using homegrown spreadsheets to do 1D tolerance stack-up that I myself used to do during my industry days too. So the multi-body design is one thing that, we did a webinar a week ago, and I would strongly encourage you to watch the webinar done by my colleague Oscar. He goes over all the new enhancements in multi-body design, where it has a lot of use cases in for Boolean addition, subtraction, intersection, right? It even has a use case in injection molded, multi-material injection molded parts for master model technique. So in starting Creo 7.0, when you create a new part, you're going to see the ability to add bodies, right? You're going to see bodies, and you could have contributing features to each body. You could have a construction body that doesn't participate in mass properties. A lot of use cases, right? And especially in additive manufacturing, and also in FEA, right? In generative design. Remember how I optimized those? I was able to use different bodies for my preserved geometry and to exclude geometry. So a lot of use cases, I think. So that's one of the big enhancements in Creo 7. So I would encourage you to go through that webinar recording that would go through the multi-body design in much more greater detail. So multi-body design is also supported in the 2D drawing environment, where you could have different cross-sections for different bodies. Your repeat region table is supported. In fact, it's even supported in sheet metal design, in FMX, right? And when you do model check, you could have it check for body info. So in one single part, you could have multiple bodies. So it's a new thing introduced in 7.0, and you may have to work with, you may sometimes have to work with non-Creo files. It could be SolidWorks, it could be Inventor or other files, or especially this is a SolidWorks file that I brought in, and there was a way to bring in multiple bodies. Even when you import parts, it's able to identify that. For example, what I mean by that is if I could just show you one more quick example here. I have a SolidWorks part that I'm going to open, but before I open that, I'm going to go to my data exchange profiles, right? You can control the import. So SolidWorks, whenever I do a SolidWorks import, right, allow me to import them with multiple bodies rather than an assembly with multiple parts. So when I do that, and when I open the SolidWorks part, as you can see here, it came out as one single part file, and there are the three bodies, right? Or there's the glasses, that is done, and it all has its own SolidWorks ID there. And if I go to any of these, or even this one here, edit definition, and if I go to import data doctor, you should be able to see those quilts that are grouped. All the servers are grouped inside the bodies there. So it's also available in, multi-body is also being supported inside of Creo View. So if you were to export a PVZ file, or when you publish PVZ files from parts that have multi-bodies, Creo View 6.0 and higher can look at those. As you can see here, I have a control valve with three bodies. It doesn't affect your WT part structure as of yet. That's something that might be done in a future release of Windchill. But right now, Windchill will see that part as one single part. Even if you try to designate it, those bodies separately, it's in the future release, maybe in Windchill 12, and later on that might be supported. But for now, if I were to export, for example, a component, let's see here, maybe this might be, I could export this, or maybe let's see if I could open up another model here real quick. So I have this, let me cancel out of that. I want to open up the part itself, right? So as you can see here, I do have 3 bodies, right? Cylinder, fluid control, right here. This is for a CFD that I've used 3 bodies to control the fluid volume inside. If I were to go to live simulation, and you see that I have a fluid study already defined and everything, and this is the one, right? I do have the fluid flow inside, but if I go to my cut plane, or I look at the direction field into the cut plane, I could look at streamlines, a lot of other options available. So this is the fluid flow. I didn't show you the results earlier, but this is something that I've done in using simulation live, right? Look at particles. There's so many options to so many different reporting options inside of CFD or inside of simulation live. But if I were to open that same part and export it as a PVZ file, right? Let's say I want to export it as a PVZ file. I should be able to open that. I'm going to go to my desktop here, and I should be able to open that PVZ file that I have. And if I go to open that with Creo View, it will have those different. Let me just go start Creo View here. It'll have those bodies. It identifies those bodies there. So as you can see here, it just brought in those bodies in there, and cylinder, fluid control, right? I want to have this. Okay, so. Okay, so and just wanted to wrap up with this. I mean, additive manufacturing, as you know, starting Creo 3.0, PTC has been trying to bridge the gap between the CAD model and the 3D printer, right? Prior to Creo 3.0, as you know, we had to export the STL, and everything else is typically done inside of the 3D printer software. But starting 3.0, 4, 5, 6, the domain that the CAD software like Creo plays when you do additive manufacturing is increased, wherein you're able to optimize it for weight. You're able to create lattice structure, do printability checks, right? They have also supported different types of lattices over the years. For example, stochastic lattices were introduced in Creo 6.0, right? They use different algorithms to create, mainly just used to conform to bionic shapes, right? So that's something they've improved in Creo 7 compared to Creo 6. There's been continuous improvement on that, especially with the stochastic lattices, which are very useful for medical implants, for shock absorption, sound absorption, etc. Right, where you're able to use in Creo 7 those lattice algorithms. They call it Delaunay triangular algorithm. It can follow the hard edges a little bit better compared to Creo 6, where you had to manually, you had to manually specify, for example, let's see, specify those algorithm before in Creo 6. So let me close out of this and quickly show you an example here. So if you see, let me go back and open up actually a different part here. So if I go and edit definition on this lattice structure, so this is the stochastic lattices, and it used to use Voronoi diagram algorithm in Creo 6 and Creo 7. They have this kind of a triangulation, very helpful when you have very organic shapes, and where it can work around the edges much more easier than it used to be before. So that's, again, that's one enhancement in 7, but over 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7, there's been so much improvement where you're able to do printability check, right? You can go to print and do prepare for 3D printing. There's so many places on you have the list of printers that are supported, right? If I go add, it kind of lists all those different 3D systems, materialize, all those that are supported. So this has been in the works since Creo 3. So that area has also been improved in Creo 7 there. So, okay, so with that, just before I look at the questions, if we could, I just wanted to wrap up with this, maybe just to those who are using Windchill, just want to show you the compatibility here. So Creo 7 is supported starting 11.1 and 11.2, depending on the date code and the CPS that you're in. There's a lot of useful resources if you would like to know more. Once you install Creo 7, there's what's new documentation, there's helpful tutorials, help center. There's also like knowledge base articles, the difference in configurations between Creo 7 and 6. All these are some useful resources that might help. And all the webinar recordings are available on our website under Resource Center CAD if you go to tristar.com, or you could go to the YouTube channel and you could review it there as well. Okay, so let's see if there are any questions in the chat session here. I'm gonna just go over one by one here. So first question here is, weld on solid welds with workspace, Windchill is a problem because a solid weld is considered as a part in workspace and Windchill creates a ghost. In Creo 7, is it fixed? Okay, that's a very good question. Very good question by, let's see, okay. So very good question. I know there is no enhancement or anything on that area itself, but I'm thinking as a workaround, if you're getting a ghost object in Windchill to do a solid weld, the multi-body option that we have inside of Creo 7, I'm thinking if we could leverage that to put it as part of a body, that I'll have to try it out. I'm not sure if because typically the weld is a feature in the assembly, and could we add that as part of a body so it doesn't create that? Yeah, I'm not sure. We'll have to. I'll have to research on that one. Next question is how you put tolerance, geometry tolerance below the whole annotation. Okay, so when you create GTOLs, right? You will have to. There are a couple of ways of doing it, right? Either do it the old school way of adding it as a separate. As a GTOL near it, and then you can relate to object. There's a way in drawing mode, there is an option called relate to object. You can relate it, or you should be able to directly select the whole dimension. And yeah, there are a couple of ways of doing it. Even if you have a whole node, I see your standard note there. The workaround could be to relate it manually, called relate to object. Then next question is, can you add leaders for a shown radius dimension in detailing? No, to a shown dimension, no, right? That's for a created note. For a shown dimensions, you can only switch, or I would say you can only add additional, you can switch them, or, you can add it to a different reference because it's a shown dimension of an actual geometry. But you should be able to add leaders when you create a new dimension. They're promoting, so many places just see as a go-to, since all students know it, perhaps at Creo needs more from the schools. Yeah, okay. Yeah, that's a good point, Jim. Yeah, exactly. That's just a comment, I think. Okay, any enhancements or changes to family tables or UDFs? No, there are no enhancements to family tables or UDFs in Creo 7 compared to 6. In Creo 5 and 4 itself, they in UDFs, it automatically goes to the next reference, right? That was an enhancement, but since then, no enhancements on these two. Okay. Again, if you have any other questions, let me just, let's see, there's one more. Is there any other questions? Not yet. Okay, so we'll just give everybody a minute here if there's anybody who's typing any other questions. In the meantime, please contact us at TriStar.com at 800-800-1714, or you can visit our website. The YouTube channel and the CAD resource area has all these webinars, recorded webinars, including the new webinars of Creo 7, as well as on PLM and other topics that our engineers on BDMs have put together. Okay, so thank you all for taking the time. I know we went a little bit over time here, but hopefully that gave you a good overview, a high-level overview of the new enhancements in Creo 7, both on core areas as well as the new technologies that they introduced. So thanks again, and you all have a great rest of the day.